Hello and welcome to The Nest. My name is Cecilia Mweni. The Nest comes to you courtesy of CTN, where we create a world of decent conversations. Now, we've heard horror stories about them. Sometimes we sit down and debate as to whether we should install cameras in our homes to monitor their movements. Who am I speaking about? Of course, domestic workers. Are they the necessary evil that we need in our homes? Well, joining me on the show is Elijah Wafula, who will be sharing his experience with us. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the show. As promised earlier, I'm now joined by Elijah. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you for inviting me to the show. My name is Elijah Wafula, and I'm a parent of one daughter, and her name is Giovanna Namirembe Nakoli.
Oh, nice. Nice name.
No, thank you.
Okay, so we're talking about domestic workers. How has your experience been with domestic workers when it comes to hiring domestic workers?
Well, it's been a challenge. First and foremost, we started off with a bureau, which introduced us to, trusting a bureau, you'd think that they would have done enough of the training. But the challenge was when you actually have them at your home, you find that there's a difference between the training and the reality at your home. So we actually have gone through 4 of them. And finally, we're trying to settle with one who really, really understands what is required of them as a domestic, or we call them nanny, domestic worker, helper, house helper, but dealing with the baby.
Okay, so let me ask, is it a responsibility of the mom or is it the responsibility of the dad to hire the domestic workers?
Actually, it's both, because there's some things that the father will look at in a different perspective, and there's some things that a mother would look at in a different perspective, knowing that mostly the mother is in tune with the emotions. But as far as the father is concerned on my end, I look at other different aspects of it, the discipline part, the security part of the baby, and also just the general safety of the baby with the nanny.
Okay. What would you talk, what's that? What's safety?
Safety is how also, for nowadays we see that Kenya has not become very secure. There's some communities that leave the kids to wander around, and then the next thing, the child has disappeared. And yet the nanny is supposed to be watching the child. People come and knock at your door, and then you open for them. Then the next thing, the baby is taken. You hire someone, and then you ask about the background, especially when it comes to taking care of the baby. Mm-hmm. Where do you come from? Where have you worked? What have you dealt with? How do you discipline the baby? All those things are in concern to the baby's safety that I look out for. As far as I'm concerned, being a mother, as a nanny, they have that intuition that this is a baby, and that's where the emotional part comes when it comes to the mother. But as far as I've said, the safety, the house, where they operate around, electrical, TVs, all those things, that the things that I look out to make sure that the nanny fully understands when they're taking care of the baby.
Okay, let's focus more on that security safety issue.
Yeah.
Do you believe in installing nanny cams in your home?
Absolutely. After the recent experiences that we've seen, they are very, very important to have them in your home. Because wherever you are, you can check on your child without having to come home. Wherever you are, you can know the truth. If you're asking the nanny, what is the child doing? Are they following the schedule that has been laid out for them? You can confirm that by actually going on your phone and then checking the cameras at your home.
Okay.
And sometimes because of that also, the advantage the cameras bring is also the traffic that comes to your home. We know that because I have quite a busy schedule of traveling, if I'm not there, I would like to know the traffic that comes to my place. Sometimes some of these nannies have the opportunity to bring in their friends, and you ask them, hey, did anyone stop by? No, but the camera tells you the truth of who and who is not in your home.
Okay. What do you do the line between invading their privacy and security in your home?
Actually, that privacy is my privacy, not their privacy. They've come into my home, you see. So whatever it is I've set out there is what they comply with. Yeah. And because of this, you take every precaution when it comes to your baby, you see, when it comes to your child. We've seen house girls beat children. Why? Because they're interrupting the program on TV. So what privacy do you give someone who abuses a child?
Okay.
You see?
It's debatable though.
It is. But you see, again, that's why you lay the rules before you bring them into your house.
Okay.
You see? It's like a job. When you go to apply for a job, they give you rules and regulations that if you say that you are willing to work there with this environment which is being surveillance, pretty much watched 24 hours, you agree to say, yes, I'm willing to do that because there's nothing to hide. And so if they come to your home and they're willing to do that, at that particular point, the privacy is not on their own jurisdiction, it's on the jurisdiction of the parents.
Okay, so do you tell them in advance that there are cameras?
Yes, because prevention is better than cure. Okay. If they didn't know and something happens, then who's to blame?
Okay.
You see, and that way, I think by doing it that way and approaching it that way, it also helps them to understand that everything that I'm doing, I'm being watched. So I better follow what they've laid out for me prior to taking this job.
Okay. Okay. I want you to create a picture for me of like when you guys got the baby and your wife told you we need a house girl. How did you go about like the interviewing process, until you finally settled on one? What did you exactly do?
Personally, I usually sit and then I observe body language.
That's after calling them for the interview in your home?
Yes.
Okay.
You observe the body language. You ask them if they have kids. How many? Are they married? That also helps you find out if they're really stable. Second of all, what is their routine? How they discipline a child? What do they do if a child refuses to eat? If a child refuses to sleep? Sometimes kids can be very difficult to deal with. You have a set program, a routine, but they don't follow that. And maybe I've seen some household where the parents come and then they blame the house help. How come you were not able to accomplish this task at given times? But the baby couldn't sleep. So when you interview and they give you reasonable answers and they tell you that I was not able to do this because my priority was the baby, then you get to understand that it's really important for them to put the baby first. During the interview also, you get to understand how they feel about children. They give you an expression of how they deal with their own children. So that's pretty much the process that it takes to really figure out a little bit until you start working with them.
Okay.
You can have a very good resume, but then when you get to the site and to do the work itself, you find that somebody has no idea of how to coordinate timing, cleaning, washing, bathing the baby. Some of them have not even experienced washing the kids, but they really want the job. They really want the money, so they'll profess that they're able to do all these things. You can cut some of those things during the interview, but until you work with them, then you begin to understand that maybe this was a wrong pick.
Okay, so would you like have a probation period for them? Or do you just pick them up and then decide, you can't do the job, so go away?
Probation is just a mindset so that they feel that, okay, within this time, I'm supposed to follow this. I usually don't like the word probation. I just tell them, just be the way you are at your home. If you don't do some of these things at your home, you wouldn't do them at somebody else's home, especially if a child is involved. So I usually tell them after the interview, I say, listen, whether you're lying now or you're telling the truth, after a certain period of time, it wears out and the truth begins to surface. So if you're really here to take good care of the child, it will be seen. If you're here for the interest of making a living, and this is the only job that you could get, and you've lied about it, it will soon show. And that's why surveillance play a very big role with the security at your home, especially with your child.
Okay, so on the flip side then, how do you fire your house girl?
Again, I just tell them, you know what, based on the evidence that I have on the cameras, because the cameras are my eyes when I'm not there, and the interaction that you have seen with the child, I cannot keep you any longer. And then I make sure I explain to them what it is that has caused that decision, has made me decide that we can no longer keep you. That way they get to understand that if I'm going to go to the next person, to the next client, these are some of the things that I need to work on myself also, to know that I cannot fake if I cannot really take care of a child. It's also very important to follow instructions. A lot of them don't say they can do something and then the instructions are not followed. That's another reason that will get you fired.
Okay, but do you have do you do like a 1 month notice as required by the government?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, but after some time, the 1 month notice may not work after several warnings, and I make sure I document everything. Send the paperwork back to the bureau and tell them, listen, I'm unable to work with your house help that you assigned to me, and so I would either need a replacement right away, and which they say that according to the regulations, if you're not happy with what we've given you, you can as well come back and then we'll try and replace the nanny with another one.
Okay. Oh, this is very interesting because most of the times we speak to the moms who do all the hiring and the firing, but now today we have a dad. So as you've had That was Elijah talking to us about how he goes about hiring house girls in his own home. Well, coming up next will be Grace Mashuki, who will be telling us more about screening house girls here on The Nest.
We'll tell you this person is incriminated in this offense. This is the police station it was reported to. Information is put in our database. So we leave it up to you. We give you evidential material. We leave it up to you. Either you go ahead, employ them, and take initiative of watching what we've told you, or not employ them.
Welcome back to The Nest. We're now joined by Grace. I'll let you tell us what exactly you do.
My name is Grace Machuki. I'm the founder of Find Me Limited. We do background checks and screening of domestic workers.
Okay.
Yes.
In your experience, I've just been talking to Elijah, and I was wondering, is hiring and firing of house girl really the domain of the mother or the domain of the father?
Oh, both the mother and the father. You need to realize that this household belongs to the mother and the father. It's basically everyone's responsibility. In some cases, you may involve children, not actually in the hiring, but on giving their reviews or views about the domestic help they will want.
Okay, yeah. So Elijah is basically on the right track.
Yeah, very right. Very right.
But in your experience, have you seen most dads getting involved?
No, not really. Okay. Mostly it's left for the women or the mother in the household, but it should indeed be both the mother and the father responsible for the hiring.
Okay, why do you think then it's important for the father to be involved?
It's important because you need different aspects. You need the father to give you his reviews as well. Like one person may not be able to get all the information or get something from the domestic help or get information from the domestic help. Sharing this between both parties will bring out the better picture of the person you're going to hire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so before the break, we were discussing about nanny cams and whether they are the necessary evil we need in our homes. Mm-hmm. Would you recommend that people have nanny cams?
Yeah.
Sorry, nanny cameras.
Cameras.
Yes, but we don't assume that everybody knows what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Having nanny cameras in the house is subjective. Some people would opt to have them in the house, some people not. But I think it's important to have. And nanny cameras, only that nanny cameras should not be used as a security measure, but more like an observation, not as a security measures. The reason I'm saying that is because once you install a nanny camera, unless that nanny camera is able to get every other room of your house, then it's not going to be effective if you're using it for security purposes. Let me give you an example. You have a nanny who is abusing your child, and she does this while bathing the child. That is in the bathroom. Do you have nanny cams in the bathroom? No, you do not have. So it should basically be used for observation purposes, not security.
Elijah, you have something to say about that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, the way I set them up is when the nanny comes, the instructions are where to bathe the baby. Why? Because that's where I've set the camera. I usually tell them that there's security cameras here, surveillance cameras observing. They don't necessarily know where they are placed, but we give instructions that if it's time to wash the baby or bathe the baby is bathed in a room. You cannot share I personally think that the adult bathrooms is for the adults. When the baby is taken care of in her bedroom, in her environment, it's a lot more hygienic and better, and the cameras are there. So we as far as security in cameras set up, we place them where we see there's a lot of traffic. The baby will be involved in movement. The kitchen, the dining, the living room, the entrance, outside, the hallway. And see, again, would you put a price on how many cameras you have to put if you're thinking about your baby's security? No, for me, I think it's very important, especially with the videos that I've seen that have come out showing how literally kids are beaten and abused by house help.
Yeah, true. And I know those are sad stories.
Yeah.
But then, which brings me to ask you, Grace, then what are the steps we should take before we hire a nanny? Before
you hire a domestic worker, first you need to establish your household needs. What do you need in your household? In that aspect, you need to check on the religious background. You need to check the academic qualifications. Do you need a domestic help or a nanny who is an extrovert or an introvert? Do you need somebody who has specific training, like first aid training? those are things you need to look at before you even think about settling on a domestic worker. Yeah.
Okay, so when we go about being, like, let's say you've just had your current house girl or domestic worker leave, and you urgently imagine, like, it's an emergency, you need one right now. Will you have time to do all that?
When settling for a domestic worker, emergency does not apply. I think at one point you need to ask yourself, what is more important, the security of my household, and especially my children and vulnerable people in my family, or they need to have a house help? Do you need to leave your child with somebody you barely know because you have to report to work? It depends with what your priorities are as an employer.
Elijah, have you ever had an emergency where she's left and you need somebody, like, to come in?
Yes.
Well, how did you go about it? Do you just hire anyone?
You know, what I do, I kind of like, knowing again, I emphasize the importance of the baby. When we have children, we know that there's a responsibility that comes with children. Fortunately, I'm self-employed. And if I feel that it's an emergency, I'll sacrifice some of my time to make sure that I'm there for the baby until you get proper help to put in place, and then I can free myself. Again, when you rush to replace someone, you're really not knowing what you're getting. So we work it out in such a way that I either sacrifice my time or the mother does sacrifice her time so that she's there in the process of hiring, not just to backfill with anyone that you find that you're being given.
Okay.
So, and if we find that it's really, really necessary to get one, then we look for close relatives who are willing to come in, that we really know that can be able to take care of the baby temporarily.
Okay. Grace, in your line of work, how do you deal with house girls who've been abusive towards the employer's kids?
We first instruct the employer to report the matter to the police, and if they have a difficulty in doing that, we assist. We have a legal department that assists parents who've been victims of abusive domestic helps to do that. We also ask them to register the abusive domestic workers with us. We have a database that holds criminal and abusive domestic workers. We register them in the database, and for us to register domestic help, we need to get some sort of proof. The employer needs to give us either a nanny cam, a doctor's report, OB number. If the case is going to court, we also follow it up through our legal department. Yes.
Okay. So what has been your experience with this? Have you had so many guys? Do you have so many guys in the database? Have you had to stop somebody from getting employed because of them being in the database?
Yes. The experience has been not really perfect because the relationship between an employer and a domestic help is very emotional. And sometimes we have employers who come to us and say, I want to register this person. And the reasons for registering the domestic help is not valid at all. This domestic help refused to work for my neighbor. But really, this domestic help is supposed to work in your household. And if to work in another household, there has to be some sort of communication during employment. So some matters we don't really report, and of course the employer or the person registering is not very happy with that. And also we've been in a situation we have to tell somebody, we don't really tell you do not hire this person, but we give you information. Then after that you make your own decision. We'll tell you this person is incriminated in this offense. This is the police station it was reported to. You know, information is put in our database. So we leave it up to you. We give you evidential material. We leave it up to you. Either you go ahead, employ them, and take initiative of watching what we've told you, or not employ them.
Maybe to just enlighten us on the current laws in Kenya that concerns maybe the firing and hiring of house girls.
Domestic workers have the same they're guided by the Employment Act, just like any other employer in this country. Only that when it comes to remunerations or pay, that could be different, but anything that is in the Employment Act applies to domestic worker. How do you hire them? You need to give them employment contract after 2 months of in employment. Oral employment agreement is acceptable, but only for the first 2 months. After that, it's your responsibility as an employer to issue a written employment contract. And in the event this domestic worker takes legal action against the employer and there was no written agreement in place, you as an employer is liable, legally liable. Okay. Yes. This is how you treat them, how you fire them. For example, when you fire domestic help, you need to give reasons. You need to give the domestic help reasons why you need to suspend them or fire them or dismiss them. If the domestic help is registered under a new union, we have KUDEA, which is the domestic helps union, you must alert the union first and give them reasons why you need to terminate this contract. You need to give the domestic help, unless it's on criminal cases like this person has stolen from you, has abused your child, then you can dismiss them immediately. Otherwise, you need to give them a 1 month notice, and you're not comfortable with giving 1 month notice, you need to give them a similar amount to 1 month salary to the domestic help.
I was going to talk about that 1 month notice. I'm thinking this person, you're firing them because of 1, 2, 3 reasons. Maybe it's not a criminal reason, but I mean, you're skeptical about how they're going to behave towards your child for that 1 month. How do you still keep that person for 1 month?
I agree. If somebody is not good with, if the domestic work is not able to perform her duties, is rude or something like that, that warrants for immediate dismissal. So it really depends why you need to suspend them. You see, if it's because like you need to bring in somebody else because you don't feel, happy with them, but it's not like how they do their job, I mean, you have to give 1 month notice. But most of these things that warrant domestic work to be dismissed are, rudeness, they're not able to perform their duties well, but if a domestic help falls ill, you cannot suspend them on such a case. And if you need to suspend them on that, you need to give them notice.
Okay. Yeah. Wow, thank you so much for that. Maybe I could ask you for your final word to the audience.
Yeah, what I would say is that fathers need to be really involved in the hiring process, because again, we look at it from a different perspective, not the emotional part of it, but we look at it as far as responsibility of taking care of the baby. And so I would urge many fathers to be involved in that. Come home, try and figure out how your child is, review their cameras because you've paid money to put them in there. You might catch some things that, the mother is not able to catch through the surveillance cameras. And so it's work which you signed up for as far as taking care of the child. And you might discover some things that you didn't think were happening through the camera system. So once again, I tell parents and I encourage fathers especially to really, really get involved in raising your children. It's not just for the mothers, but for the fathers.
Okay. Grace?
Main shot, do not hire if you cannot do background checks. If you've been a victim of a criminal domestic help, make sure you report the matter to the police and register them with us to ensure that this domestic help does not extend crime to another household. Yeah, and do pre-employment screening. A lot of these problems between the domestic help and the employer is because the employer did not take the initiative of doing pre-employment screening. Yes.
Okay. Maybe for someone who would want to reach you because maybe they want to report a case or they want to be helped with the screening process. How do they reach you?
You can reach us through our website, www.findrealme.co.ke. You can reach us on our Facebook page, Find Real Me Kenya, or give us a call at 0719 064 460.
Could you say that again slowly?
Okay. You can reach us through our website, www.findrealme.co.ke, our Facebook page, Find Real Me Kenya, or our telephone number 0791 064 460.
Okay, thank you very much. This is definitely the next. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Do you have anything to sell or exchange? Please send us the pictures on the numbers on your screen. Thank you for joining me on today's show. Today we're talking about domestic workers and how to treat them in terms of hiring and firing. My take home has been that fathers need to be involved in the hiring and screening of these domestic workers. Secondly, we need to know that these workers are covered by the Employment Act in Kenya. How we hire or fire them really matters because we need to do that according to the law. And third, we need to do necessary security or background checks for these house girls before we hire them. That has been my take home. I don't know what has been your take home. Why don't you write to us and tell us what you've learned from this show? Well, I'd like to thank my producer and our cameraman for the good work that they're doing. And I'd also want to thank Eastland Hotel for hosting us. My name is Cecilia Mweni, and this has been The Nest from CTN, where we create a world of decent conversations.